Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be doing my fall book recommendations. I have a ton of books sitting here. I also have some books that I don't have with me. So we have lots of books to talk about. So I'm going to try and make it brief, not make it like too long, but I'll give you a little synopsis of the book and that sort of stuff. In the fall, I tend to read more fantasies, more like just general fiction, books with a little bit of like a deeper emotional plot to them as opposed to just like a fluffy romance book. So there aren't really many romances in here, or if they are a little bit of like a deeper emotional book. But yeah, I've got lots of different genres, lots of different books to talk about. So we are going to dive right in. Like I said, I'm just gonna run through these books. They are in no particular order. And yeah, we're just gonna get started. The first book we're going to talk about is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So this is a romance technically, but I feel like there's so much more to it. It is a Greek mythology retelling, sort of. If you don't know a lot about Greek mythology, this book might be a little confusing at first. I don't know a ton, so I was doing a lot of research, looking up characters, because they'll mention characters but not necessarily explain the backstory on them. So if you're not familiar with Greek mythology, definitely have Google handy when you're reading this, at least at the beginning, to kind of understand the characters. It's a story about Achilles and Patroclus, and there's basically a war between these different gods, and it's just really good. I really enjoyed it. A very emotional read. It definitely had me crying at the end, and it's just a really, really beautiful romance. Then we have Normal People, which I feel like I've talked about a million times on my channel, and will probably continue to talk about for the rest of my life. This, I always say, is one of my favorite books of all time. Absolutely love this book. I am going to be doing a yearly reread of it probably for the rest of my life. This is about Marianne and Connell, and they meet each other in high school, and then it kind of just follows them over the next like 10-ish years, I want to say. And it is a romance, sort of. It's about friendship and romance and just all these deep topics. They're always kind of missing each other, and there's just always this thing or something keeping them apart, but it is just such a beautiful story. I enjoyed this book so much, and I'm definitely going to be rereading it this fall. Next up, I have a duology, and this is The Way I Used to Be and The Way I Am Now. So definitely check trigger warnings on these because it is a deeper emotional book. It has pretty heavy mentions and topics of SA, so definitely if that's something that triggers you, I would not recommend reading this book. But this is about Eden, and she was assaulted by her brother's best friend when she was a freshman in high school, and then it follows her over the 4 years of high school and kind of how she deals with that and how it impacts her on a day-to-day life. It impacts all her other relationships with people. The second book follows Josh, who she dates in the first book a little bit, but they end up separating, but it kind of follows their story and them getting back together, and also him helping her through this assault and everything that has happened. It gave a lot more depth and understanding to some of the things that happened in the first book. I love Josh's character and just the way that he really understood Eden, and yeah, I definitely recommend this duology if you're looking for a little bit of a more deeper and emotional romance. Next up is another series I'm sure you have heard of and I've talked about a lot, and that is the Magnolia Park series. I am so obsessed with this series, and I feel like fall is the perfect time to read it. It's set in London, and for some reason, just that alone like screams fall cozy vibes to me. This series is split up into the Magnolia Parks and the Daisy Hates books. So Magnolia Parks follows Magnolia and BJ, and they're kind of on again, off again, back and forth romance. And then you have Daisy Hates, and she's also a part of this group, but a little bit separated, and it follows her and Christian and then her brother as well. Basically, the way I always best describe this is Gossip Girl, but set in London. Like, there's drama, there is relationships, there's breakups, there's all this crazy stuff. There's also people that are involved in like art and arms trading and like kind of some illegal shit, but it's so good. Like, it is genuinely so entertaining, and I swear if they made a TV show out of this, I would eat it up, because that's what it feels like when you're reading this series. Is it just feels like a crazy drama TV show. But it's like you can't put it down, like you just need to know what happens next. I love these books. I've given several of them 5 stars. Overall, I would give this series a 5 stars, and it is not finished yet, so there are more books to come in the series, and I am so excited for it. Next, we have The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is about Linus, and he is a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth, and he is sent to this foster home where the bad youths are. So these are kids that have bad powers or magic or things like that, and he goes, and it is the most beautiful story of found family and understanding people that are different than you. And oh my god, this book made me cry. I loved it so much, and the sequel actually just came out. I just picked it up, and I'm definitely going to be reading that coming up soon because I loved this book so much, and I am so excited to be back with these characters. The kids in this story are amazing. The foster parent that takes care of these kids, like everything about this is so beautiful. There is a hint of a romance in this story, and I just really, really loved this. Also, it is a fantasy, so I feel like it is perfect for the fall time. Next, we have A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. This is a grumpy old man who lives alone, and then he has these new neighbors that move in, and he doesn't like them, he's annoyed by them, but then over time you see this beautiful character development in him. Again, this is a wonderful story of found family. You learn about his past and kind of why he is the way that he is, and I loved this story so much. Again, another one that had me crying at the end. I really want to read more of Fredrik Backman's books because I have heard wonderful things about his books. He has beautiful writing. Like, his writing is so gorgeous. I loved this book so, so much. Again, a bit of a deeper emotional book that I feel like is perfect to read in the fall. Sorry guys, my camera died, so if the lighting or anything has changed, I apologize. But the next book I have to talk about is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is about Nora, and she dies and she goes into this sort of like afterlife, purgatory in between life and death. And there's a library, and every book she pulls out is a different story of her life if she had made a different decision. So if she had gone to a different school, if she'd picked a different major, if she had picked a different job, dated a different person, like all that sort of stuff. And I think it's a really beautiful commentary on like life and regrets, and always taking every opportunity that you can because you never know what could happen or how life could be different. So it is such an incredible story. I really loved this book so much. Again, a pretty deep emotional one, but it is really, really incredible. And then we have The Circus Train by Amita Parekh. This is about Lena, and she grows up in the circus. She is paralyzed because she got polio as a child, and she grows up in this traveling circus because her dad is in the circus. And it is during the tensions leading up to World War II, and they're in Europe, and she meets a boy named Alexander, and the two of them become friends during this, and a lot of things happen. This is definitely like a historical fiction, but there's also hints of romance, and I just really enjoyed this book a lot. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, just because I don't always love historical fiction, and it is a really good one if you're looking for historical fiction but you enjoy romance as well, because like I said, it does have a hint of romance in there. Then we have Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. So this is about two sisters that are black. Grew up in a southern black community where a lot of the people are lighter skinned and can tend to be white passing. At 16, they leave this town, and one of the sisters goes on to marry a black man, have a daughter who looks black, and really lives her life as a black woman. And then you have this other sister that goes on to marry a white man, has a child that is very much white passing, and lives this life basically as a white person. And you see the dichotomy of their lives and how different their lives are lived just because of their skin color. Even though they come from the same background and are both black, because of the way that they present themselves and their skin tone, their lives are vastly different. I feel like this would be a really good book club book because I think there's a lot of deep emotional things you could discuss in this book, a lot of lessons to be learned. Obviously, I can't speak too much about this experience as a white person, but I think this is such an incredible story, and I really, really loved it. And this book is super highly rated. I feel like I've seen it talked about everywhere, and I completely understand why. It is such an incredible book, and I highly recommend you read it. Next series actually that I have to talk about is the Artifacts of Uranus series by Nisha J. Tooley. This is a fantasy series, and I love this series so much. It really reminds me of a lot of different fantasy series that I love. The first book, I always say it's like The Bachelorette meets Hunger Games, which you're like, how does that correlate? How does The Bachelorette relate into a fantasy? But basically, our main character gets taken out of this prison, and she gets put into these trials where one of the kings of one of the kingdoms is having these women compete to be his wife, and whoever wins gets to be his wife and gets to be the queen. And then from there, things take a very drastic turn. The fourth book comes out in November, and it is the final book in the series, and I'm so excited to read it because the third book was left on a major cliffhanger. But I loved this series so much. I felt so immersed in it, and The writing was incredible. It has really made me want to read more of Nisha J. Tooley's books because her writing is just phenomenal, and she has some other fantasy series that I definitely need to read. And then the last book I don't have with me because my mom's borrowing it actually, but it is The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. And this is two stories of two women. One was a spy in France during World War I, and the other one is an American woman post World War II that comes to Europe to try and find her cousin who has gone missing, and these two women meet and have this journey together of trying to find her cousin. Also get flashbacks to World War I and everything that was going on with the spy there and kind of her life and everything, and I loved this book so much. It's such a like female empowerment story, but it's also so well written, and the discussion of both World War I and World War II and how these women's lives are so vastly different because one grew up in Europe and one grew up in America and at different time periods, but how they connect and have this connection over this shared thing that they're trying to find. And I just really enjoyed this story so much. Again, historical fiction is not necessarily always my favorite, but I really enjoyed this story. So that is all for my fall book recommendations. I feel like we have a good mix of books. If you guys read any of these, please let me know and let me know your thoughts. Also, if you have any book recommendations for the fall for me, definitely let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!